Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
This peace I have, the world didn't give it to me. This peace I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This joy I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy I have, oh, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Can't take it away. Can't take the joy. Can't take the love. Can't take the peace. Can't take it away. 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 Can't take it away.
There is a distinct gospel vibe going on in this place today. I don't know if you picked up on that or not. I just love that music. So I think it's universally just expressing the joy of God. Amen. Can I hear an amen? All right, thank you for that. Do you guys know about dad jokes? It's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing. Check it out. Dad jokes. They're incredibly corny. And pastor jokes are the new thing. I'm helping get that going. Also a little corny. 6-year-old Angie and her 4-year-old brother Joel were sitting together during church services. Joel giggled. He sang. He talked out loud. Finally, his big sister had had enough. She said, "You're not supposed to talk out loud in church." "Why? Who's going to stop me?" Joel asked. Angie pointed to the back of the church. She said, "See those people over there? They're hushers." I warned you. It was pretty corny. So this is Celebration Sunday. It is a long-standing tradition here at Unity of Houston to celebrate the good that shows up in and as our community, and also to celebrate the good that is yet to come. So the message title I chose today is Celebrating All That Is and All That Is to Be. We talked a lot about prosperity principles. Who was here last week for Karen Russo? Wasn't that amazing? She talked about the power of meaning, that money in itself doesn't have meaning. It's the meaning that we give to it. You know, I'm so proud to be a part of a community and a tradition that is Unity. We've been teaching this for 120 years, that money is not bad, it's neutral. But we can bring spiritual truth and principle to it, and we can experience spiritual truth in our financial lives. So we've had 3 weeks now of bringing this deep teaching of truth to our financial lives. And today is no different. I wanted to start with actually a quote. I read this 2 weeks ago by Myrtle Fillmore, one of our co-founders of Unity. She said, "True prosperity is not making money or putting out good or developing property. It is determining what our individual soul requires in order to cause it to unfold more and more good. Then how to harmonize expression with the needs of our fellow man, so that all are really benefited and inspired to unfold and express more of their spiritual resources." What Mother Myrtle knew was that it's not about the money, it's energy. And we are here to reveal some unique good of God in our lives. And so we are deep believers in the fact that you ought to have enough. You should not be living in scarcity. And if you've been experiencing scarcity, I encourage you to go deeper in these teachings. We're just finishing up our Prosperity Plus class. We'll be starting it again in January. But I encourage you to go deeper in these teachings because you need to be free in your financial life so that you can then participate more fully in God's beautiful world. This Sunday, Celebration Sunday, it's been a tradition, Reverend Howard has been doing this for years, to talk about some of the good things that have happened in our church over the past year. We don't have enough time for that. We're just going to talk about the last 10 weeks. Does you remember what happened 10 weeks ago? We didn't have church that day. Somebody came to town. I was in a 12-step meeting recently, and this woman said, yeah, what was that homeboy's name that came? Oh, Harvey, that was his name? Messed up my plans. Well, Harvey got in the way of our plans too. We didn't have church on that day. The next Sunday, Reverend Jean Marie gave a beautiful message about how we can stand in our human experience and speak the spiritual truth of who we are. And the next Sunday, we celebrated a legacy of love, saying goodbye to Howard and Diane Caesar, who had served this ministry faithfully for 34 years. We've been through a lot. The next Sunday was my first Sunday as senior minister, and all of this huge leadership transition. I want you to know, too, that is not easy. To do leadership transition in an established community is not easy. This church was established in 1919 in Bertha Miller's living room in the Heights. Do you know this? She had been studying correspondence course, the Fillmore's teachings in Kansas. Her family moved here. A little house, I can't remember the name of the street, maybe Cortland, but it was up there. Rutland, that was right. Thank you. Reverend Mindy, our local historian right there. She was not here in 1919, by the way, so. But she has been a part of this community since 1976, somewhere in there. But Bertha decided that she wanted to share this teaching called Unity, and she invited her neighbors. And so in her living room there on Rutland Street in the Heights in 1919, this community, this fellowship was born. You're stepping into something beautiful. And that ministerial transition, that leadership from one senior minister to another can be a tricky thing in churches. Many churches have not done it well, and I'm so grateful that this one knows how to do it. From John Rankin to Sig Paulson to Howard Caesar to me. It's really, because you know what? It's not about the minister. It's about the community. That's what that shows. But in the midst of this very difficult thing, a tricky thing, complex thing called leadership transition, we had a hurricane. I know, 51 inches of rain. Our plans were altered. And so what I want to share with you today is I got to see who it is that I'm leading during that experience. I got to see what kind of community is this? How does Unity of Houston respond to two things going on, leadership transition and major disaster? It was incredible to see what happened. I haven't given you an update in a while. We did some fundraising. Does anybody remember what our goal was for fundraising? $100,000. As of today, we've raised over $350,000. Our concert that we had on September 15th, we raised over $100,000 in one night. That concert has been viewed over 10,000 times on Facebook. We formed a hurricane recovery leadership team, people from our own church who volunteered their time and expertise from a philanthropic world, from a nonprofit, from disaster relief, people in our own church who stepped forward and said, we're going to help make sure that that money goes to the right place. As of today, we've gifted automatic tithes of $5,000 to each of 8 churches that were affected by Harvey. We have distributed $152,000, including that money, but also to individuals in our church and those churches as well, and to people outside in the other communities. We have still $206,000 left to distribute. We are going to be meeting again this week, that committee, we've created a grant assessment form, and we're going to be going in a blind assessment. We're going to be delivering the rest of those monies. The thing I want you to know about that, it would have been easy for us just to raise that money and then just give it to another nonprofit, but that didn't feel right. Our leadership team said we really want to make sure that as much of this as possible goes directly to the people who need it. So I want you to know that 100% of every dollar you gave and all the other people who gave around the world is going directly to the people who needed it most from this storm. Our church has, and what we've done for our staff and volunteers, we have absorbed all of the administrative costs of this. In addition to the money, we've also organized volunteers. We have over 100 people in our church, families and individuals, and we have had people in mucking out houses, pulling up the carpet, ripping out the sheetrock. We have formed a Facebook group called Unity of Houston Helping Each Other, over 200 members there. We have had incredible work. People have shown up. We have had a day of healing and support in the Pyramid. We've done Processing Harvey Drum Circle. There was a women's event called We Have Your Back. Incredible what's happening. We're not done. Obviously, the work continues. But you showed me who you were in this process, that this is a stand-up community. These are people who, when the going gets rough, they do get going. And I'm so honored and so grateful to know that that's who's in the room today. People who know how to do what's needed when it needs doing. So we have had a lot of other great things happen in the last year, obviously, and someday I'll tell you about them, but not today. Because I want to talk about, that's who we are. We're celebrating that. We are a community that cares. We are a community that delivers. But I want to talk about who it is we're called to be going forward. About 6 months ago, I gave a talk, and I asked people to think of how they might answer these two questions. Number one, what is essential for you about Unity of Houston? What are those things or that thing that is, if it weren't here, this wouldn't be unity for you? What is essential? And then the second question, what's needed now? I've received dozens of emails, and my email address is mgott, M-G-O-T-T, at unityhouston.org. I really do welcome your input, because each of you has a perspective that I don't have, that we don't have as leadership. We want to hear, what is it that makes us unique, that makes us the powerful community that we are? And because we are an evolutionary teaching, we know that we must change, we must evolve, we must grow. What is it that's needed now? I don't know if you know this, but church is changing. Church attendance is down 30% across the board in America. For many, many years after, the decades after World War II, that happened in Europe, and people kept waiting for it to happen here in America, and it never did until the last 15 years. People are staying away from church in droves nowadays. And they're reporting that even though we have social media, people feel more isolated and have more anxiety than any other time in the history of our country. And they also report they have no need for spiritual community. It feels to me something is disconnected there. What I believe is that this church has teachings that will meet people right where they are for healing, for wholeness. I believe that we still, I love, and for everyone who's watching us on Facebook today, you are so welcome. You're a part of this community. And I welcome those who are able to get here sometime as well, to be in the room with us, to shake a hand and get a hug, to build relationships. In this time of great isolation, we need the human touch more than ever. We need to be known. We need to be seen. We need to be touched. I believe that we offer something that is relevant and powerful. In this time where people are experiencing great anxiety about the future, we teach that there is a peace that passes understanding within you. And here are some practices that will help you touch it. Meditation, prayer. I believe we have a bright future. I believe we're needed in the world more than ever. And so today, for the rest of this service, I want to point our awareness away from all of our wonderful accomplishments into what's next and what wants to happen through us. There's a story I want to bring forward. It's an old one of the oldest that we go. This is from Genesis chapter 15. To give you a little bit of context, this is in chapter 14, Abram's nephew Lot had been captured, and Abram had gathered his own men and had gone in and freed his nephew. And then this is beginning with chapter 15, verse 1. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eleazar of Damascus? And Abram said, You have given me no children, and so a servant in my house will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. And he took Abram outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. And then God said to him, So shall be your offspring. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. If you remember, God promised Abram a son and his wife Sarai. Sarai was 90 years old, well past childbearing years. And we've got good infertility treatments today. I don't think there's anything we can do for that. And this story is not unique in the ancient world, particularly from that region. There are many stories of miraculous births. The story of the virgin birth that we celebrate at Christmas with Jesus, that is just one of many virgin birth stories that come from this region in that time. And this story of someone being born to a couple who is far beyond childbearing years, this is not unusual. These are powerful miracle stories, and they happen a lot in the ancient world. And why? What is the deal with all these kids? In that time, life was often very short, and it was often very, very much a struggle. We don't know what the life expectancy was, but we think when we heard that Methuselah was 900 and some years old, there may have been a slight exaggeration there. The average was probably something closer to 30 or 35. And life felt so hard and so short that if I could just have children that would ensure that some part of my life would go forward beyond me. The word that I want to bring into the conversation now is legacy. That somehow, beyond my own experience and my own lifetime, something good will keep going. And children were the way that happened. And so if a family had no children, if a couple had no children, it was difficult. It was painful. And so in this story, Abram was a righteous man, and he had reached out to God, and God promised, crossed my heart, you're going to have kids. And Abram was like, it ain't happening. There are no kids here. I'm going to have to leave my fortune to a servant because I have no children. And in that context, what that meant was something would be cut off. Some legacy of consciousness really would be cut off because it would then become somebody else's legacy to leave to their children. And in the metaphysical understanding of this is that we too want our good to extend beyond us. We might think about the servant representing the material world. We might be able to leave something materially to somebody, but we want something spiritual that will transmit beyond our final breath into the world. Legacy. Something wants to extend beyond the human in all of us. But Abram had no kids. And he reminded God of that. He said, there's nothing here. I'm going to have to leave it all to my servant. And God says, no. You will be blessed through your own flesh and blood. And he took him outside and showed him the stars and said, as many as you can count. And they are so numerous. The stars go deep and deeper still, beyond our seeing. This will be your offspring. In 2013, does anybody remember what the Houston Astros did in 2013? It'll come together, trust me. We're going to go from baseball back to Abram in a moment. In 2013, our beloved world champion Houston Astros lost 111 games. They were rebuilding. The general manager said they were planning for the future. They were not aiming for the middle. They were aiming for the top. In 2014, they only lost 92 games. And then in 2015, they finally had a winning record, 86-76. And last year, 84-78. Went backwards a little bit, but yeah, they're still on the winning side. This year, our Astros won 101 games in the regular season, 11 in the postseason. So they had 112 wins this year. And 4 years ago, they had 111 losses. Isn't that interesting? Trust me, I'll get there. So Abram, he's been promised a beautiful future beyond his own living days, a legacy that can be transformative in the world, and he has no children. God says, you will have this. This is coming. And verse 6 of chapter 15 says this: Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. In 2013, the Astros were at the bottom of the league. And yet they had a dream of something bigger. They wanted something more. And maybe, just maybe, they believed. Do you think they believed? Later, at the end of chapter 15 in Genesis, God also says, and it won't be easy, you will have children, you will have grandchildren to many generations, but for 400 years, they're going to be in captivity and in slavery in another nation. But they will come out of it with great possessions. Another thing that happened in this story, in the next chapter, is after the covenant, there was a covenant sealed through animal sacrifice. I'm glad we don't do that anymore. Our new animal kinship ministry would not like it. There was something that happened there. God showed up in smoke and fire, and Abram and Sarai got new names. Sarai became Sarah. Abram became Abraham. Because the breath of God had entered into them. They got a new name. They got a new way of being in the world because they believed a new future was coming. And Isaac was born. And from Isaac came all the 12 tribes of Israel and Judah. They believed. I believe there is a future for Unity of Houston that is beyond anything we've seen yet. When we step into the story of Abram and Sarai, Abraham and Sarah, when we believe that something wonderful is happening through us into future generations, when we believe in that, I believe that another star is reflected in Abraham's eye. We become sons and daughters of Abraham because we are in the story, as were our beloved Houston Astros, becoming another star in Abraham's sky. I'm going to go to preaching. I'm almost done. I am so grateful for this opportunity to be your leader at this time. It's a weird time to go in the church business, I will tell you. But I have such a sense of a vision that wants to be born in us. And if you want to be a part of that starry sky with me, you are so welcomed. We were talking about it after the service. Somebody came through the line, one of our new people who was just lit up with his own vision. And he was saying, I want my vision to be a part of the vision here. And that's what I see. It's not an either or. When you get your life working, when your dreams start coming true, it's part of the whole that we're birthing here. The sky gets very starry indeed. I can't do it alone. Our staff can't do it alone. It requires all of us who consider Unity of Houston to be their spiritual community. The conversation we're going to move into now is of pledging. You knew it was coming. This is not a bait and switch. When you pledge, when you tell us what you're willing to give financially for the next year, it frees us. We can be in stewardship. We can be in a right and sane relationship with the good that comes. We will spend what you give. That's simple. So I'm going to ask you to consider being a part of, my vision is there are 600 families and individuals in this church who would like to commit to being a part of our good for 2018. So far, we've had, not even counting the first service, as of today, we've had over 54 households who have stepped up. Our goal, last year, our total financial commitment from pledges was $1.4 million. We've already had, even before this morning, $261,000. So we are well on our way. Something is happening here. I feel it. And this is just another way that you can be a part of it. You are brilliant. You are shining. And I'm so grateful to be your leader at this time.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.